I was like, yeah, all right.
Farscape is like if Firefly and the Muppets had a baby.
Farscape was out of this world, out of the solar system, maybe even out of the galaxy.
Farscape was Buck Rogers meets Dark Crystal.
Ooh, see, we're pretty close on that one. Hey,
We're
everybody,
pretty close.
And welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast, the podcast in which we watch the first episode of a series so that you don't have to. With us, as always, championship pointer Michael Kenyon Rosenberg.
I won the pointing championship with this very finger.
That finger is more famous than you on Grindr. And also joining us today is second place pointer. I saw him doing this when you were doing it. It's like he knows what we're going to do before we do it. He's the Dean of Arts and Sciences now at Duke University. Can you believe it? Also, occasional science advisor for Star Trek, Dr. Mohamed Noor.
Hi, always a pleasure to be on Watch the First. And my pointing is not quite as good as Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, but I'm learning.
You're still the president of the Pointing Society of Duke University.
Yeah, Mike's the champ. Don't even try. It's just not worth the effort. My name is Ryan T. Husk. And I've been doing this with Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, Fallingtower related stuff for like 25 years, it feels like. We are co-chairs and co-captains of this crazy ship. And today we're going to talk about Farscape, episode 1, entitled Premiere, was it? Yes, Premiere.
Yep.
All right.
This is the premiere of episode 1, titled Premiere.
Isn't it great that they called it Premiere instead of Pilot? First of all, okay, so
maybe it was written by British people or something.
Oh yeah, by like a British premier.
Premiere.
Maybe the Soviet premier.
Premiere.
So everybody, please remember to give this video a like, give us 5 stars, comment below. Tell us, have you seen this show before? If so, did you love it or what or not? That's about it. Everything else. Can we just get past that? I want to get to my favorite game. Nice time, Michael.
Thank you.
Everybody knows my favorite
shirt,
game.
Purple tie.
Not Michael's favorite game, but my favorite game. And I think it might be Mohamed's. We will see. We like to make predictions because Michael Kenyon and I have known each other for quite some time. So we can usually predict if the other person liked it and or how much. However, I think our predictions have been a little off lately, if I remember correctly. So we got to get back on that winning streak. Michael doesn't really like to call it predictions, though.
Yeah. Well, really, I mean, what it is actually called is predicaments, because we put ourselves in a predicament by making our predictions.
Normally called prediculations.
Nope. That was an early draft, and final draft is predicaments.
For now,
is better. It's fair.
For now, you can never rush genius. Okay, so Michael, are you hearing something in my mic? I just heard something. Everything good?
I thought I was your mic.
What?
I thought I was your mic.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'd like to predict that Michael liked this show. He wasn't over the moon. I think he liked it. Mohamed, I believe you liked this show halfway to the moon. You liked it more than Michael liked it, but just a smidge. I think you were pretty warm on it. But that's my prediction. What do you predict, Michael?
I think Ryan was plus on it. He wasn't out of this solar system about it, which is way over the moon.
Yeah.
But I think that he enjoyed it. And I think that he definitely is going to have some qualms, but that's par for the course. He has qualms about everything, really in life. And Mohamed, I think, is going to like it, despite its kind of like they're doing this science experiment, and it's kind of like, yeah, duh, that's like everybody knows that already. And like Mohammed's like, come on, how is that some big experiment? But he still liked it and liked the alien characters that are from a galaxy far, far away, maybe.
What about you, Mohammed?
Yeah, I predict that I think Ryan liked it a little bit. I'd say like if on a scale 1 to 10, I guess you're going to land in like the 6 range. And I think Michael's going to like it a little bit less. I think he's going to be kind of middle of the road, like right around a 5. That's my prediction.
Okay. These are some bold predictions, you guys. Bold.
Whoa,
Everybody's
maneuvers.
landing between 5 and up on our predictions. Now, everybody at home, do you want to play it safe? You've gotten some hints. Do you want to be bold and think that some of us hated it or really didn't much care for it? It's time to make your predictions in the live chat or in the comments below. While you're typing those in, you're like, but then I'll miss part of the show. No, it's okay. Michael's going to buy you some time right now.
I love this part.
By telling you what this show's even about.
Yeah, you don't want to miss this, though. Thrown into a distant part of the universe, an Earth astronaut finds himself part of a fugitive alien starship crew. Astronaut John Crichton attempts to use the Earth's atmosphere to propel his module at high speeds, but it is hit by a radiation wave and is sucked through a wormhole into a distant part of the universe.
Wow.
Well done, as always.
There's a lot of eye contact. All right. So our second game, this is my favorite game. Boy, it's
the first game was your favorite game.
Yeah, but
this is maybe your second favorite game.
Yeah, we like to compare and contrast what we expected before we watched this show from like the 90s or something, right? The show's from the 90s.
I think it's 99 or something. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. We compare and contrast what we expected before we watched it with what we actually got. Michael's got his hands prepared to demonstrate verbally and physically what we call this show game.
So what we expected and what we got. The marriage of the two is our expectations, which is actually the title of this segment that Ryan loves.
I love it. If you don't believe me, just ask Michael. He'll tell you. Let's see. So, Michael, what did you expect before you actually watched this first episode, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, I had heard about this show, and I heard it was like Jim Henson does sci-fi. So I was expecting some Muppets or puppets or whatever. Some Henson puppet fun, kind of like what Dr. Mohamed Noor said at the beginning of the show, like a marriage. I forget what you said at first, but then you also said Dark Crystal.
Rogers meets Dark Crystal.
Buck Rogers and Dark Crystal, yeah. So I was expecting those Dark Crystal, those kind of, there's like creepy puppets, the Skeksis. Those were cool. What were those guys? They're like the giant beetles that are like, they're like armored warriors, those guys. I forget what they're called.
Me too.
But I was expecting those kinds of things in a science fiction atmosphere.
What about you, Mohammed? What did you expect before you watched this first episode, if anything?
So I'd heard about the Muppets aspect, but I'd forgotten until I was actually watching it. Then I was like, what's with these like puppets? And then I was like, oh, this is the Jim Henson one. That's right. I'd forgotten about it. All I really remembered about the show was like our friend Gigi Edgley was in it. That's kind of all I really knew about it, is that it's some sci-fi. Gigi Edgley's in. She always posts pictures of herself on Instagram with it in that outfit and hair and things like that. But I knew it was some sort of sci-fi thing, but I really didn't know anything about what the plot was. My thought was it was going to be some kind of like Stargate-ish thing or something like that, but that was about as far as I remember. And it wasn't until actually watching it that I was like, oh yeah, Muppets.
Well, I'll tell you what I expected.
Okay.
So this
is what I was expecting.
Oh, thank goodness. I'd seen a piece of this show before, like on its first run. I remember being at a friend's house and it was like a scene and there were puppets. And I was like, what the crap are you watching, dude? Why are you watching Muppets? See, and you guys just mentioned Jim Henson. I had no idea, or I'd forgotten. And the friend said, oh, it's this cool like sci-fi show or something like that. And I was basically like, I want no part of this. Because I just saw Muppets and I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but it's not going to work. I got to go. So what I expected was a sci-fi show with Muppets and also, human characters, because we know Gigi Edgley, as Mohamed mentioned. And that was it. I wasn't sure.
Gigi Edgley?
She wasn't in the episode. That's right there.
Oh, she wasn't in the episode.
Not in this episode.
Right.
She comes in later, apparently.
So that's it. That's what I expected. And I didn't really expect to like it or dislike it. I just remembered that my first impression was like, you ain't tricking me. I'm not watching this crap. That's what we expected. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, what did you actually get, though?
So actually, another thing that I just remembered that I did expect is, for some reason, I thought they were like on a space station or something. I thought there was supposed to be a guy with like, that was like a bird guy or something like that. Like just, this is just in the back of my memory.
Yeah.
No, it was like a short, like puppet guy. That was like a bird guy. Maybe that's, I don't know. I don't know what I expected from that, but what I got was a pretty dark and adult sci-fi show. There's definitely some adult themes in here. There's like the sexy blue lady who's like flirting hard with the space dwarf guy.
The Delvian.
That's what I called him.
Delvian.
The space dwarf, yeah. Well, I think I called her the space elf, and I called the bird faced guy the space dwarf.
That works.
But then Angie pointed out he's also kind of like a Klingon too, because he's like, I'm a warrior, warrior. Although he doesn't use that sword very well in this first episode. But even like the space elf lady, blue lady, she kind of is like flirting with the human guy a little bit. Like there's a lot of flirtation going on. She like meditates naked. So there's definitely some adult themes. This is not your son's science fiction show or daughter.
Unless your children are adults.
Or if they're European.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mohamed, what did you actually get?
I'm actually really surprised about this show because my first impression watching it, it felt very 80s. And I was like, wow, this is from 1999. It felt like something you would have seen like the same era as like Knight Rider and things like that going on TV. So that was a little bit of a surprise. The Muppets completely threw me off. I was like, wait, what's going on? Oh yeah. So that took me a little while to get onto, but then the rest of it was, it was there. It was okay. I didn't find the depth of plot or depth of start of a plot that I was expecting. I mean, there was setup for sure, but it didn't quite suck me in as I thought it might suck me in. But I didn't dislike it. It just didn't suck me in as I thought it might, as much as I thought.
Poignant.
I have a lot of nitpicks, but we'll get to that later.
Oh boy, here it comes.
Wow.
By the way,
science,
everybody, I'm wearing an old school Star Trek shirt. Check it out. How cool is that?
Nice.
I think it's from 2009. I think it was the 2009
Say
movie.
old school. That looks like the JJ movies.
Yep. Well, I mean, that means this shirt's 13 years old. But anyway,
It's been that long.
figured I'd pull that out just to kind of, match a little bit. I mean, it's a decade off, but whatever. So it was either that. I almost wore a Def Leppard shirt, but I'm like, even that's a decade off in the other direction.
Yeah,
I can't.
The other direction. Yeah.
I just can't figure it out. Life is not easy. So I'll tell you what I got.
Especially
though.
not right now.
Struggling.
Right now.
That's Van Halen.
Oh,
okay.
that's right.
But that's a little closer to the time frame, though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it first started and I saw the name Ben Browder, I was like, oh, okay. I feel like I've seen that name a bunch of times, and I'm like, I must have just seen him at like the name at conventions, like with Ben Browder, because I remember seeing that name. So there was that. I was like, okay, maybe he's a guy, but I also noticed the name Crichton. But then I was like, no, I think that's just the writer, sci-fi writer, like Michael Crichton or director. I don't know. Anyway, so I was lost in that for the first few minutes, but then I ended up seeing a show that was I don't really have an opinion on it. It was fine. I definitely likened the dude to Klingon. I was like, oh, Klingon, yeah, he's the Klingon guy. But I like Space Elf and Space Dwarf for sure. That definitely works. And yeah, and I agree that it was a little adult. I think the lady humped him with her ear at one point. She hugged him and she went like, and he was like,
something happened. Yeah.
And then the Klingon got all jealous. Like he's like, dude, we were totally talking about this, and you went and gave it to Ben Browder.
I don't know. What I got is he was like, oh, he got some.
Now he looked jealous, I thought. Like a little. Anyway, so that's what I got. I got a show that was it had Muppets, and it had some things that I kind of recognized, like the dude's name, and it was okay.
Can I ask you guys a question? Had either of y'all watched Buck Rogers before?
Mm-mm.
Long time ago, like when I was a very young child.
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of Buck Rogers, and basically, like Buck Rogers went through time, but this was through space.
The
but otherwise,
24th century or something.
Yeah, it was very, very similar though. Aside from that aspect, like wow, this is basically just like a reboot of Buck Rogers, but space rather than time.
Oh, and also it said it was written by Rockne O'Bannon. And I'm like, oh, I know that guy too. Our buddy Mark Zicree is always talking about Rockne O'Bannon, and now I can connect what's going on. Yeah, but look, let's move forward. First of all, thank goodness that he left Earth, because I was immediately like scrambling to try to remember all those boring guys' names. I'm like, oh, there's a dad and there's a nerdy scientist guy that's, I don't know. Are we going to need to know these people? And then he left and we're like, cool. Just these other guys are easy to remember.
Yeah, they didn't even really need to introduce those guys, right? Because like they could have just started with him on the space shuttle, on the rocket ship, and then that pretty much takes care of that whole explanation.
Yeah, they even gave them names. They didn't really need names. They could have just gone on.
Well, two things for that. Number one is I think it's cute that his dad gave him that good luck charm, because I think that's going to be something he's going to hang on to throughout the show. And then at the end of the series, supposedly he's going to give it back to him. Did he? I don't know.
I think he gave it to those peacekeepers.
And but he didn't get it back.
With it.
Crace.
No, he just left.
Crace. So the other thing is, the only other reason to include those guys would be if there are some episodes where they actually cut back to them trying to find him, which seems like I hope they don't do that, because that sounds boring. But some shows like to do that. They like to be like, oh my God, he's missing. And then there's like little storylines about what they're doing back on Earth. We don't need that.
Single episode like Voyager had for Star Trek Voyager had like the very little bit there. Yeah, with Barclay, exactly.
Okay. Well, now it's time, I guess, to do Michael's favorite segment, which is who is your favorite character? And there are many to choose from. Several characters with which to choose, or from which to choose. So, Michael, did you have a favorite character?
Oh, do you mean, did I have a favcac?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
Ryan hates that I named this segment favcac.
I'd forgotten
that doesn't even,
which is pretty nice.
That's not even really it's not even really short for a favorite character.
Yeah, the cack part's a little funny. Like, what's the second
it'd be
sound?
favcac. But favcac just sounds, it rolls off the back of your throat. Favcac. Yeah, my favcac would have to be this dude right here. This short little prince guy,
the farting guy.
I don't know. I don't remember his name.
Dominar Rigel the 16th.
Yeah,
sure. I bet that is his name. Yeah, it's weird that they name him a Rigel if they're in a different part of the universe,
spelled differently.
But I bet it is.
with a
But
Y
yeah, he
instead of
was
an
my
I.
favorite character just because he was just a weird little dude and he didn't really care what anybody else thought. He just did what he wanted, and he was funny. And to me, maybe the most interesting character, which is usually how I choose my favcac, is like this guy seems like he's got a lot more backstory to unpack. I mean, the space elf and the space dwarf, I'm sure they've got some interesting stuff, but this guy, right off the bat, he's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so
fair.
he's
I mean,
my favcac.
There's
there
a
was that
little
comment
more.
about.
There's a little more
Please.
cack to that fav.
Yeah.
That fab's
Yeah, it's
got a
interesting
little
about
more
the whole-
cack. Sorry,
It was
Mohammed.
interesting how I think it was my bad. It was interesting how he was supposed to be have been deposed by his brother or something like that. So yeah, there's some
Mhm.
interesting angles to that one. I agree. That was cool.
Dr. Noor, did you have a character that you preferred the most, that you really enjoyed, or
Yeah,
that you
I
loved?
I thought about this one, anticipating that question coming up. I guess I'd pick Aaron's son, the lady who was from the I almost said the Dominion, whatever the bad
Soon.
guys were. Oh, soon, you're right. Mostly it was interesting because she mentioned something like I've was it actually soon? I can't remember if it was son or
Yeah,
something.
it was spelled S-U-N, but they pronounced it soon.
Okay, I think I was looking at the
Soon.
subtext. Yeah, she said something about how like this has been. Yeah, I've had to do this from birth or for a long time, something like that. I was like, huh, I wonder what the story is like. That is this one of those bred to do things, or what, or whether they force people into these jobs or something like that. I guess I'd pick her. I don't know. I didn't like the Luxon warrior, the warrior who's like a bird guy kind of. I wasn't as impressed with him.
Space dwarf.
I can't remember. I don't know which one's elf and dwarf from you guys' list, but the
Come
taller
on,
one.
Muhammad. So obvious. Why didn't you like the space dwarf though?
Well, I'm just gonna say the bird guy,
Luxon.
just in case.
The
Yeah, the Luxon, yeah.
Ka Dargo.
The
Yes,
warrior.
Cod Dargo, yeah. I mean, he felt two dimensional to me. I mean, maybe it's somebody who they're going to build out later, but he felt very two dimensional to me. Like, you know, I'm tough. I'm looking to see how tough I am. I mean, like you said, kind of how like some of the earlier Klingons were before they got developed more in Star Trek.
As garbage. Well, I'll tell you my favorite character. Thank you. I just realized that I should have thought of that while you guys were talking, but
Yeah,
said I was
exactly correct.
I just don't. I don't have one. Let me think.
You pick the pilot.
Well, here's the key though. If you ask a question to other people, you have to have an answer as well.
I know, and I should have planned ahead. But right now, I said head, but right now, yeah, I really. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the floating Yoda giggler. Just because I don't know.
Because he
Surprisingly.
farted.
Yeah, he farted. However, I didn't like that.
Helium, no less.
Which made me want to play with helium again because it's been so long. It's been weeks. So the thing is like that guy kind of, I was like, is that a different character? Because he came and he helped the Ben Browder character. And remember, he was like, I'll help you now. You help me later. And I was like, oh, he's the nice guy. And then the very next scene, he's like a dick to him. He's like, who are you? I don't know you. I don't like you. And I was like, isn't this the guy that was just saying, I'll help you? Like, who wrote that? I was very disturbed by that. Did you guys feel that?
It was funny.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like,
but also for me,
right
it kind of
hand
meant
not
that,
knowing what the left hand is doing here.
Well, for me, it just meant that he kind of goes with the wind. He does what he wants. And like, he was just telling him, I'll protect you. Don't worry about it. But then it's like, he's like, who cares? You're nobody to me.
I hope you're right. That'd be great for a character. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make me like him more if that were the case. I didn't realize it was Jim Henson, but I remember saying like, oh God, Muppets. But then I was like, well, at least they articulate pretty well. The talking is very off and doesn't work for me, but like the facial expressions, you know, like when he's like happy and then he goes sad and then happy again. I was like, hey, that's pretty good. Good job there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I thought this show was okay. I thought it was cool. Here, you know what? I don't want to be a negative Nancy. Let me tell you what I liked about this.
Okay.
I liked that they did a very good job of character, of introducing
Agreed.
characters. Two things. Number one, they introduced the characters very well one by one, which makes it very easy for somebody like me to discern between the different characters very easily and remember who's who and what's what. And the other thing that they did was make the characters very different, which also makes it very easy. So there are some shows that we watch that I'm like, we just got introduced to 17 characters and they're all almost the same thing to me. And I have no idea who's what or what. I don't know. And it's really hard. This is very clear. All the characters are completely different. They all look different. That it's easy. They were introduced one by one. They get an A+ there for me. That is what I thought they did the best of was, and also I thought that the outline of the pilot was great. Easy. You move over to this other thing. He gets caught up in this battle. There's an easy and organic reason for the bad guys to want to attack him. That works. I mean, it's extremely coincidental and unlikely, but at least as far as character, as far as emotional truth is concerned, we get it. It makes sense. It works. It can be a permanent thing. He can hate him forever because of this, and it works. It's fine. So I thought the structure and the character was all very good, personally.
I agree. That was my favorite part of this whole thing too.
Right.
Is in terms of, like I said, the characters, they're easy to distinguish. They're easy to understand. We got, like you said, introductions. They were spaced out. Yeah, I agree with every word you said. I think that was the strength of the pilot here.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's easier to do too in a science fiction show like this, where you're dealing with all these different kinds of aliens. So obviously, they're even just being a different species, you're going to have a different personality. You're going to have a hugely different look. So I think that's probably one of the easiest things for them to have done. Yeah, but they did nail it too. That's true.
Tell that to Star Trek, where most of their characters look like humans.
Well, that's the problem, is that you have all these characters that look human, but in this one, they went out of their way to make them look all different, like different aliens. So,
and the pilot, we never actually saw the pilot in the flesh. It was always like somewhere in there, which I thought was also great because the pilot looked like he might be similar to the roll around Yoda guy. And then I would have been very confused with two aliens that look similar, but maybe they're not. Maybe that guy's like an inch tall, or maybe he's giant, but I got the impression that they're similar in scale.
Good point. He did have a bunch of different arms too, like going all over the place.
Question for you
But
guys.
I was gonna say, I love that the ship is alive.
Yeah. Moya, was it?
Yeah, exactly. I wrote that down.
I bet it is. I don't really pay attention to names too much, but I love that fact because it's almost like a completely different character in the show, even though really it seems like the pilot's the only one that can talk to the ship.
But then wouldn't the ship revolt against them if the ship belongs to the bad guy Dominion? The ship would be like, nope, sorry, I'm taking you back to my masters or friends. I don't think it
does though, because the ship had that control collar on it, controlling it. So maybe the ship was also a prisoner.
Yeah. Also, ship, nice. Maybe alive, but not necessarily fully sentient, or limited, as you were saying, Michael. Too. If you think about, say, from Battlestar Galactica's reboot, the Cylon ships there were alive, but there was a time when Starbuck climbed in one, pulled out its guts, and was able to fly it.
Right. So you're thinking they're kind of brainless, like the Dutch.
Yeah.
So you had a.
They weren't. Yeah, right. I love that.
We love the Dutch.
Yeah, they weren't fully brainless.
Hey, why'd you say that about me?
Later in, I don't want to go too far in Battlestar Galactica, but later in Battlestar Galactica, like both the Centurions and the ships then got to essentially lose control from the humanoid-looking Cylons because of some change. So,
and Mohammed, you said you had a question too.
Yeah, the question was a point that you made in passing there about the why Crace hated John Crichton. That somehow felt to me ridiculous because
I agree.
Yeah, like the ship was just sitting there, and his brother ship just
Yeah.
crashed into it. Like, I mean,
How
guys,
dare you
an
just be
asteroid.
floating there in space while my brother's trying to fly by?
Yeah, right. I mean, it seemed very odd. And even when he watched the video of it, it's not like, well, maybe he got a different perspective. Like we saw the video that he saw, like it's just sitting there. I mean, the guy, his brother was a crap pilot. That's not his fault.
See, though, so to me, that didn't too much bother me because I'm like, okay, that tells me what about that character. That character is not like a genius. That character is obviously not reasonable, right? That character is angry and hurt and used to getting his way. And maybe he's a narcissist. And it's just all about like, no, this guy did this thing to my brother and I'm going to pick him up, you know? So I'm like, that just tells me what kind of character he is personally.
Good point.
I agree with Mohamed though. That bothered me the whole show. I was like, I kept saying it like, how dare you just float around in space while my brother's flying by and he clips your ship and then crashes into an asteroid. So it was just I can see now where you're coming from, Ryan, but that's just while I was watching it, I was just like, that's preposterous.
Also, they created the mystery of how come humans and cetaceans or whatever they were called are exactly the same. What's up with that? Are they going to create like a Battlestar thing like Mohamed mentioned where it's like they're long lost cousins or something like that? Because clearly there's got to be a reason for this, or I'll be very sad that he goes and meets all these different aliens, but one group of aliens happens to look exactly like humans. But I do think that there's going to be more to it, especially because he, as a human, can almost appeal to some of them and then see the darkness within them, or maybe that he just went way into the future and that's what humans turn out to be. And there could be this big moral. And he's like, oh my God, humans turn into monsters. We've got to change our course. I feel like there's got to be something there, right? Have you guys actually, I guess we can't really divulge that if we've seen more of this show. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that mystery?
It's interesting. I'm curious to see where they're going to take it. I mean, they are. So this show was before the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, but the original Battlestar Galactica had that idea too, though, where again there was the 13th tribe, which was Earth and things like that, and that was from the 70s, so that's obviously well before this. So I mean, there was precedent around. I'm not saying they were copying it necessarily, but there's precedent for somehow that like way back we're all related. So that always, as a scientist, that always bugs me because the problem that says is that that assumes that we're not as closely related to things on Earth as we are to those aliens. So, or not at all related to other things on Earth. I mean, did the 13th tribe arrive here? There were already monkeys and grass and everything else. Like, no, like we obviously evolved on Earth. So
that is a great point. You've got an excellent grasp of evolution and biology, Dr. Mohamed Noor. That's true because we are obviously descendants of these things that preceded us, and any kind of sci-fi show that says that we were brought in clearly doesn't understand evolution.
Assuming we're not related to stuff on Earth then. Like, well, but we obviously are. So
yeah. Science fiction for sure.
Non-science fiction.
Did you guys, off of the biology part, did you guys pause? I kept on trying to see what the name of the space shuttle was when it was taking off. I paused it and it was the Coloroy. I don't know if that's some like that weird. It's like a weird mixture of all the different names of the other shuttles, like Columbia and Voyager, and there's all or Discovery.
Oh, is that what it was?
And it was like EASA.
Yeah, his little ship was Farscape 1, but the space shuttle was Coloroy. Coloroy.
I assumed that the NASA with an I was probably just international instead of national. And I was like, that works. That's good, especially because it was recognizable logo kind of thing. It looked very similar, but with an I instead of the N. So I'm like, if the first word in NASA is national, probably, then the first word might be international. Is it? I just assumed.
It is.
National Aeronautics something, maybe?
And Space Administration, yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
My first job was at NASA.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. 1987.
Wow.
Xenobiology?
No, that was not biology at all. It was coding a touchscreen software package.
Wow, touchscreen in the 80s?
Yeah. It was way back.
Oh my goodness.
Fortran.
So no wonder Farscape did so well. in 10 years later. I don't know what that means. So Michael, your least favorite character was this main bad guy?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of
Nice.
all, his motivation for hating John Crichton was just preposterous. But also, on top of that, I might have been able to buy it if he were a better actor. He was just terrible. He was terrible.
But he had a cat turd hanging from the back. Somebody should have told him.
I mean, that was delicious. But I mean, I think John Crichton at the beginning of the show, when he was like talking to his dad, there was some bad acting there too. But I feel like his acting improved a little bit. But that guy, man, the whole time he was just, his whole greased back look, that was kind of like gross and cheesy for a bad guy. He's got the mirror goatee. That's kind of all just kind of like choices made by production design and hair and makeup. But that was just his acting. I just could not buy that he was that mad that his brother ran into a ship that was just floating there in space.
Maybe he's just unreasonable, because you can imagine that if one of us lost a brother or sibling suddenly, we would be extremely emotional about it. And if we were unreasonable or evil, we would blame the person in the parked car that he ran into or something. You know what I mean? Like, we would be like, if you hadn't been going to Foot Locker that day, my brother would still maybe be alive. And you're gonna get it now, man.
Maybe. I just can't imagine what it's like to be that stupid or evil. So sorry, Ryan. I guess you can.
Yeah, not the evil part.
The other thing which got me is really weird was when I almost said Michael Crichton, when John Crichton got sucked into the ship and things were sparking, and he's like, open the canopy. Like, what? You have no idea.
Yes, I put that in my notes as well. And I'm so glad, because I knew you would catch this. My first thought was, what are you doing? What makes you assume that it was just all oxygen out there? And even more preposterous is, how can you be right that it's all just oxygen? You hop out into some alien world or some alien ship, and oh, what a relief. It's the exact kind of, it's not even making me cough.
There wasn't even a comment about it. I was
or
like,
at least a little bit of oxygen and mostly nitrogen, right?
Yeah, good point. It wasn't even a comment like, this is what a surprise. It was just like, oh, okay, I'm out. Like, really?
It didn't even enter into the equation. It wasn't even part of the script. The script was just, the ship starts to catch on fire, so the dude jumps out, puts it out, and whatever, and then goes to the local bar that they have and orders a root beer.
Eats their food, and their food's okay.
Has some spaghetti, no problem. They're like, oh, your spaghetti's a little spicier than what I'm used to, but that's okay.
Made of sand.
Even though they analyzed him, and his gut biome was completely different than the evil humans.
Yeah, it's all very peculiar.
I like that part, actually.
Yeah, but I got two things to say about that. First, let's just say that first, because that's more related. I thought that they did a very good job of introducing new lingo, different races. They're whatever the measurement of distance, like metras, or I don't remember what they said, but it was something like that, And we figured out very quickly when they're like, oh, they're 60 meters away. Now they're only 50. We're like, okay, we get it. This is just a measurement of whatever it is. Yeah, starburst, as Mohamed said, I'm like, okay, that's their warp drive. And they also were talking about, organizations, and like they even had kind of some slang or something, tossed in. I mean, but they created a world with different languages, but that were all very understandable with the context. Because most shows don't really do that well. They either don't do it at all, or they add all this stuff and you don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're trying too hard to be cute, whereas this one I thought did a very good job of introducing all the new terms and all the new words and all the new lingo to where we could all understand it, same as the characters.
And they had the translator microbes, because initially he couldn't understand it at all.
And
so
they
that was good.
explained it well.
Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't get these at birth.
Yeah, and what do? They camp out in his brain. What was the word? They colonized the
Brain
base
stem
of
or
the
something?
brain. That's what it was. He's like colonized. But the other thing I wanted to point out, Michael, when you said that they made these decisions that were kind of production decisions that were bad, I noticed a few things, but I thought it was more so about budget. Hopefully, seemed like they had some budgetary issues. At least that's what I'm
Yeah, I
hoping
bet.
it was. Like I was noticing a lot of very noticeable ADR, and I'm like, okay,
Oh, yes.
and I was,
Terrible ADR, terrible audio syncing too. Yeah.
yeah, to where I actually had to rewind and be like, did I just have like some kind of weird brain fart, or did I have a spasm, like, or was that really bad? And I wanted to make sure because I didn't want to like give it unfair criticism, but I rewatched it and I was like, oh yeah, that's boy. So I almost wanted to watch it a third time just to have a good laugh, but that would be mean. But there were a few things like that okay, and like the bad guys.
Don't you mean evil?
The bad guys are just standing
It's
in
right
like
arrow,
a
too.
room basically, and I thought that they just had no budget to give them some. They're just standing there, they're like, okay, like they hire the actors and like, all right, first day on set, here we go, and the actors are like, oh man, I can't wait to see my space station, they walk in, they're like, it's a warehouse. That's cool. Like it. So we just stand here. Yeah, you just stand here, maybe push some buttons over here. These are Skittles. I don't know.
Why it felt to me a little bit the 80s. Like, I mean, somehow all of it didn't feel. I mean, I know it's not modern like 2022, but it still really didn't feel like even 2000. I was trying to think of like what. It's not fair to compare it to things that like movies that came out in say 1999, like Star Wars Episode 1. Obviously, that had a much bigger budget, but even TV shows that it still felt a little bit lighter. But maybe the Muppets cost a lot, so they had to save someplace else.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what they're called. These bad guys are called sebaceans, not cetacean.
Like the cyst, sebaceous cyst.
I also liked it when the dude, and I thought this was also smart writing, was when the dude's like, dude, where are we? Are we still in Orion's arm or the Milky Way galaxy? And he immediately catches me. He's like, what am I saying? You guys know what the hell I'm talking about. And that's true. Like, even if they knew what Orion's arm would be, they'd be calling it something else. Like,
right.
And from wherever their perspective is, as anybody knows anything about constellations, the constellation looks completely different. They don't even look like constellations because from our perspective, these things that are super far apart look close together. If you're at a different angle, if you're at a 90-degree angle from it, they're just not anywhere near each other. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting and a fun way to look at things, that he's having this realization as an astronaut or cosmonaut going, oh, wait, you guys have no frame of reference to know what the hell I'm talking about.
I know what you're saying, but I want to bring up the cool 70s synth music in the late 90s.
Yes.
Just right in the beginning. I was like, yeah, all right. What is this, Thor Ragnarok? I love it.
Mohamed, did you also love it?
I did like that. I thought that was very funny. Again, it made me think a little bit of it. Somehow, just all of it felt very Buck Rogers. I mean, Buck Rogers actually does look lower budget
or
than
Captain EO.
Yeah. Yeah, but the pilot for Buck Rogers, again, he goes off into space, and then in his case, he gets frozen as opposed to sucked through a wormhole or something like that. But then he comes back, and there's an evil empire, and then there's there's the good guys, and there's still a bird-looking guy, and it's still like it felt very, very parallel to that show.
WTF Buck Rogers.
Yes.
Ryan loves to watch old things.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like I may have possibly seen Buck Rogers as a young tyke, but I don't remember any of it. I remember its existence. And I remember thinking,
I remember the little robot.
Oh yeah. Tweaky.
Was that the guy that went beady, 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 beady?
Exactly.
Oh shit. Maybe I did. Right. He was just like a little, was his name really Tweaky?
Yeah.
Beady, 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 beady. Yeah, it was weird. He had a weird.
He had like a professor guy who was this other thing he'd carry around. It was like a little round thing that he wore like on a necklace. It was some professor or something. I can't remember what his name. It was like a smart guy that Tweaky would walk around carrying. Like
on a gold chain, he had like a clock.
Yeah, basically. Essentially what it came out. Anyway, sorry. Different show. Sorry.
Speaking of gold chains, Dr. Mohamed Noor, it's time to talk about you for a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So you have a really fun and interesting and exciting and entertaining, but mostly educational YouTube channel called BioTrekkie Explains. Not only do you explain stuff, but you also talk about it with guests, which is very fun. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Explains and entertains.
I hope so. That's the goal. So I started the series back just shortly after the pandemic began. So I think the first episode was April 2020 or so, something like that. And most of what I have on the channel are these short videos that are between 6 and 12 minutes long, where I take, one episode of one of the various Star Trek series. So for example, Next Generation, The Chase. And I'll pull out a little piece from that and say, hey, this tries to give an explanation for why there's so many humanoid aliens on Star Trek. Good connection to what we're talking about here. And let's break it down and talk about the real science, like what about this works well? What are parts of it that don't work well? And just try to deliver a lot of good science content that way. But, again, digestible. So like 6 to 12 minutes too, because people don't want an hour and a half of just science talk at them the whole time. So that's most of what's on there. And I've had on the order of one a month or so, but lately I've gotten a little bit more inconsistent because I've been busy with other things. But you mentioned guests. So a parallel series I have is called BioTrekkie with the Admiral, where my good friend and wonderful actress, Jane Brooke, who plays Admiral Katrina Cornwell in Star Trek Discovery seasons 1 and 2, will come on with me. And then we have longer discussions, because then it's actually a discussion instead of just me talking at you the whole time. We have a discussion about the science in a couple of episodes of Discovery seasons 3 or 4, the ones that she did not appear in. And for each of those, I try to bring 2 or 3 big science topics that either came up or that something about the episode reminded me of. Because sometimes there wasn't that much science to discuss, especially biology, because I don't do the physics. If there wasn't much biology in it, I'll talk about, oh, well, we saw this interesting insect. Let's talk about insects more generally, or something like that.
It's biology.
It's biology that way, but I don't necessarily spend the whole time talking about the depiction in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So we spend maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the episode talking about that, and then we flip it around. And I ask her to tell me about the production aspects of it, and she'll say, "Oh, well, I like the scene where Michael Burnham and Captain Giorgio were walking down the hall chatting." I said, "Well, tell me, how does that actually work?" Because we take turns being teacher versus student to each other, about me being the teacher for the science or being the teacher for the production side. And they're wonderful discussions. I enjoy them so much, because it's just fun to chat with somebody about this. And she's so curious and inquisitive and intelligent. And she'll come up with these great analogies of oh, that sounds like blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God, I never would have said it that way, but that's brilliant. So we have so much fun with that. The last episode we had, so it was usually just me and Jane. The last episode we had, which we aired, I think on the 1st of May or something like that. We actually had a surprise guest come on board. Yeah, we didn't announce who it was ahead of time, and we actually had Bob Picardo, the EMH doctor from Voyager, show up, and he joined us for the discussion. We talked a little bit about biology and medical ethics, which is something that he's interested in as well. And again, fun chat.
Wait a minute, you mean Johnny Cab, aka the coach from the Wonder Years, aka Lewis Zimmerman, aka Alara's dad in the Orville?
All those people.
AKA the cowboy from Inner Space.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. Oh, excellent.
Good knowledge.
Yeah.
I love that movie. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, that's a great one. I saw that in the drive-in theaters. Okay. Mohamed, let me correct your full and official title. You are the professor of biology and dean of natural sciences at Duke University, and a contracted science consultant for Star Trek Discovery, in my own words.
I thought he was the interim dean of arts and sciences.
That's what I thought too.
So that starts July 1st.
So
I haven't actually started that job yet, but yeah.
Talk about a nitpick.
I haven't taken on that job yet, but I'm very intimidated by it, but honored they actually are asked me to do it. So it's pretty exciting.
You got this.
We'll see. It's 38 departments. I mean, basically, if you think of any of the classes you had in high school, that equivalent department would then be under that, unless you had engineering in high school. But pretty much anything else like English, dance, ROTC, chemistry, political science,
Spanish. Is English an art or a science?
So So arts and sciences is broad. So
Arts and humanities, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's three divisions. There's the natural sciences, which includes like biology, chemistry, computer science, things like that. There's the social sciences, which have like political science, sociology, things like that. And then there's arts and humanities, as Michael said.
Man, we should have talked about this from the very beginning of the show. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that English would be an art. Certainly none of the English I see or read on the internet. That's for sure. That is not artistic.
Well, it's an art to read that, though.
Okay.
Maybe the humanities division. So it's arts and humanities. So it's in that part.
Love it.
Our English
Also,
department at Duke is actually ranked in the top 10, I believe. Or if not top 10, then like very, very close to it.
if not top 10, top
like
5.
13. Yeah.
And Mohamed gave us some very good advice, Michael, when he said that he had such great discussions with Jane. And that reminds me that people are interested when they watch you doing something that you are interested in. So, Michael, we need to act more interested in Farscape as we jump into the terrible twos. Hiya.
The bottom line. You're forgetting that it's actually called the bottom line. That,
boy, oh boy, it's time for the bottom line, everybody, for Farscape. Woo! Oh, this is interesting.
Love this part. I love all the parts.
Okay, so it's the final two questions
All
of
right.
the show.
Okay.
And the two most important questions. Michael is uber excited, as he always is, for this segment. It's really just, you could fast forward to just this part and you'd be fine, but don't miss Mohammed's stuff as well. Here we go.
Right.
Question number 1. Michael, here it comes. Fast and Furious. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Farscape entitled Premiere? Oh, wait, maybe it is a British thing. I noticed that everybody had an English accent except for the main guy, Ben Browder. Almost like all the bad guys had British accents. The elf lady had an English. Everybody had like an English accent, I noticed towards the end. Really weird.
No, I don't think the Peacekeepers had a British accent.
I think they did.
No, the lady and then the douchey guy behind you, like they both spoke American English.
I thought they did. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll just have to watch it a second time.
Well, you are wrong, but yeah, I got a couple laughs in this episode. So there definitely, we talked a lot about the things we didn't like, but that's probably to hide that we all really liked it.
Oh yeah.
There was like when he gets sucked into the magnetic wave or whatever, and he's like floating around. He's like, Canaveral, and he sees like these ships flying by. He's like, Canaveral.
Yeah, that was funny.
I kind of got a laugh out of that. Yeah, there's something, I forget what it, but there was some other part that made me laugh. I just wrote down, I know this feeling. Oh, I don't know. There was some kind of feeling they were talking about, and someone said, I know this feeling. I hate it. And that was kind of a funny part to me. But I don't remember what feeling they were talking about. Yeah. Compassion. Yeah. Compassion. I know this feeling. I hate it. That was funny to me. So yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff going on, a lot of interesting aliens. Like when they are on that planet, the merchant, he's got these big mouth and it's like teeth on all sides. And but then this dude didn't even seem fazed by it. He's like a little bit, he's like in shock a little bit, but he doesn't like care about talking to this guy. He's just like, oh, give me money for this thing. I'll sell this to you. Yeah. So there was a lot of good stuff. There was a lot of bad stuff too, but ultimately for me, it came out a little bit ahead. So I give it a 6.75.
Oh.
6.75. What a deal. What a deal. All right. What about you, Mohamed, on a scale of 1 to 10?
The synth music was great too. So sorry.
Yeah, I called it tribal synth music in my notes. I liked it a lot too.
What about you, Mohamed? Yeah, I think for me, it was okay. I mean, I didn't hate it for sure. but it felt very much just okay. Like it didn't really grab me so much. A lot of parts of it seemed a little derivative, like the Delvians basically were like the Star Trek Deltans. And there was a lot of stuff.
Too, yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that was like, yeah. I mean, I don't mind rebooting things. I don't think there's only so many different things one can do anyway. But I think I'm gonna
weren't the Deltans virgins though? Weren't they?
Well, they had to take an oath of celibacy to serve in Starfleet.
Right.
Like, I don't think they were just all virgins.
This one's definitely not celibate for sure.
Yeah, but she's not in Starfleet. So.
She'll sell a butt.
Oh, I think I'm gonna come a little bit lower than Michael, but not a lot lower. I think I'm just gonna go with 6.0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still in the plus range.
The plus range, but like lightly.
Yeah. So I'll tell y'all what I give it on a scale of 1 to 10. Certainly there are a lot of things to giggle at and to poo-poo at because we're snobby and we're spoiled by, there's a lot of sci-fi out there in the world nowadays and back in the day, and there's a lot of good stuff. And so sometimes we can judge things a little harshly because we've seen very good sci-fi.
Yeah.
And, overall, I'd say that there were more pluses than minuses on this first episode. The bottom line for me is that these guys, the writer had good structure, for a pilot, like he knew, the A, B, C, D, what's important in a pilot. He didn't linger too long in that opening scene. I was just like, oh God, I do not want to see this. But luckily it moved quickly. The story's explained. We can nitpick the story, but the story, we all get it. It's not confusing. It makes sense. We understand what everybody's doing and how the show is going to go. The characters were introduced well. So I give it a 6, a straight 6.
I predicted
wow.
too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it deserves a little better. And I might talk myself into a 6.5 before the end of this thing's over. However, that's what we gave it on a scale of 1 to 10. The more important question
first episode.
Yeah. More important question is this. For the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Farscape entitled Premiere. Now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, would you, of your own volition, watch the second episode?
Yes, but barely. I said yes, but barely. There's enough interesting aliens and enough intrigue. Forget about the conflict, because the conflict is stupid. This whole notion that this guy's mad that his brother ran into this guy.
You really hate
stupid. I hated that part. But there's enough other interesting things that I'm kind of interested in knowing about that I would just barely watch the second episode.
I've bumped myself up to a 6.2. I've talked to myself when I just started saying all the things that was done well. I was like, you know what? I shouldn't be such a curmudgeon.
A perfect pick for you before that.
Why not 6.25?
I almost went up to a 6.5, but then I was like, don't embarrass yourself. So, Mohamed, would you watch the second episode of your own volition?
Probably not. I mean, it's one of the things that, like, I'm kind of on the barely, but right on the other side. If someone was to talk it up to me and say, like, it's really, really great, really just stick it out to episode 3, that's when it gets awesome, I might then. But like, based just on what I saw, probably. I mean, am I going to click down? I mean, I'm going to walk downstairs some evening when I don't have anything to do and click and watch the next one. Realistically, probably not. But again, if it was on the TV, I wouldn't run out of the room. If somebody told me it's great, I'd try it. But just based on that, I'm barely on the no side.
You heard it here first, everybody. Mohamed watches TV downstairs. Otherwise, not at all. He's like, if I'm going to watch TV, it's going to be downstairs or bust. So, I think Mohamed and I are twins with this show. And I think he's also reconsidering, thinking maybe he should have given it a 6.2. He's like, yeah, I am being kind of harsh. So I'm also a no, just because it didn't really capture my interest, but it was close because it had different alien characters. It had theoretically an infinite number of new worlds to explore. What if they go to different planets and see new aliens, and there's all these mysteries? Again, here I go. I'm going to start talking myself into it, but basically it's barely a no.
6 1/3. Why not? Go for
Yeah,
it.
and I think that if other people wanted to watch the second, I would understand why they would, and I wouldn't thumb my nose at them. But for me, I'm okay. Same as Mohammed. If somebody was like, dude, trust me, it gets really good, I'd be like, maybe.
A few more.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. We did it, you guys. It's hard to describe this show without kind of shrugging your shoulders to me. Like, I'm like, it's
It's
right.
the show for sure. They made it. People watched it.
It was made 20 something years ago, and now it exists.
Yep.
Didn't cease to exist.
Yeah. So I guess that's about it. Michael likes to always remind us to be sure to like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to this podcast, give it 5 stars, tell your friends. And
sure. Yeah.
Very importantly, I forgot to mention at the top, and Michael forgot to mention for me to mention or mention himself, that if you'd like us to review a show, in the comments below, just say WTF, type WTF and the show. So you would say WTF Battlestar Galactica, or WTF She-Ra, or WTF what have
We did
you.
She-Ra already.
Yeah, we did.
Or we did the newer one.
Yes.
If you want us to watch the old one.
And also, parenthetically, let us know where we can find this
Yes.
thing. Is it Netflix? Is it Amazon? Are we going to have to watch a pixelated version on YouTube? Let us know. So that it makes it a lot easier for us to find.
If you watch the first Battlestar Galactica, if you have to watch that 3-hour version of the first bit, because remember, it's not.
That's why
we're
not doing
WTF
Battlestar Galactica.
Maybe
really
the
good,
maybe
but
the
it was like
original
3
one.
hours.
Maybe the original one. Yeah.
The original one we can't find online. Otherwise, yeah, we've had a
really?
few people recommend that one, but we can't find it.
Really? I watched it a couple of years ago with my son. I guess it went off. I think we must have watched it on Netflix. but
If
maybe
you
it took
find it, Dr. Noor, put it in the
Yeah.
comments and parenthetically
I
tell us.
feel
where
like
to
I
find
remember
it.
seeing it somewhere, but yeah, you're right. Like it must have disappeared.
Yeah. I'll look around.
Well,
And Buck Rogers, WTF Buck Rogers.
yeah, we never
Well,
found it.
I do the original Battlestar Galactica before I do Buck Rogers.
All right, everybody, that's about it. Let us know where to find Battlestar 1979, and we'll go check it out with everybody's favorite Herb Jefferson Jr. playing Boomer, the original.
John Colicos is Baltar.
I don't know
And
what
Face
that means.
as Starbuck. I forget his name, but
Oh, Dirk Benedict. He was also in
Yeah.
the A-Team. Yeah, that's right. His face.
yeah,
Really?
Face
Yeah.
Face was
Yeah.
Starbuck? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Starbuck. Yeah,
There's a
You
scene
didn't
in
know
the
that?
opening of the
I
A-Team where
must
Starbuck.
have forgotten.
There's a scene in the opening of the A-Team where Face walks by a Cylon at like Universal Studios, and he kind of looks back at it.
Oh boy, 80s. You know how to do it. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. And thank you so much, Dr. Mohamed Noor, for
Pleasure.
playing with us. You always legitimize this show. So thank you for doing that.
Great show. Thanks for
Finally.
Finally. We'll see y'all next time. Michael, am I forgetting anything? Not really, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Just what I have to say.
Yep. This podcast was cool.
This podcast was edutainmentful.
This podcast was fun, though induced a lot of shoulder shrugging.
Mhm. Yeah. So everybody at home, you know what to do. Just remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg always likes to say.
Don't forget to register to be an organ donor. I don't have my thing. Don't forget to register to be an organ donor with Donate Life America, donatelife.net. And after you do that, please don't forget to remember to watch the first of things.